I have been trying to make this video for quite some time now, and I've been having a lot of difficulties. I'm working with the very bare minimum. I am a homeless man. I am extremely poor at this moment right now, even though I'm wearing some $2,000 Gucci glasses. They're prescription, so I need them to see. I'm giving a indication of who the last Messiah might be. Now, I'm going to be doing a lot of videos in the future. I'm going to identify, the Antichrist. I'm going to be going through a lot of different aspects of history, especially American history and the people of America, descendants of Jesus and Prince Malachi. I'm going to be going over a lot of stuff in the future. So you might want to pay attention. Everything I'm going to be telling you is facts about all people of America, especially black people, the chosen people of God, and teach y'all about yourselves, give y'all your own history so y'all understand where y'all come from and y'all purpose and y'all position and y'all duty. Everybody has a duty in life. I'm going to be going across all of these things here in the future. I pray that a lot of people tune in and like and share this video and future videos for the upliftment and enlightenment of the people and the empowerment of the people so that we can retrieve what's rightfully ours. We are owed a lot belongs to us, and part of what's owed to us is all of America. So you might want to pay attention to this if you are black, because America is truly your land. America belongs to my family, and all the Africans here are related to me. So pay attention. Right now we're talking about the 10-week prophecy of Enoch. I'm going to start around the 6th week that this man is explaining here on the TV. I want you to tune in and pay attention to this. I'm going to explain a few things as we go along and we watch this video. So just please pay attention.
Covenant with him at the age of 70, I believe. And then at that point, there is a 430-year prophecy, and that gets you to the Exodus. Then when you get to 1 Kings chapter 6, it says 400 and some years later, after the Exodus, Solomon begins to construct the temple. So many years later, the temple is dedicated. So you can get all this just from Scripture up to this point. Pretty easy, actually. So 2935, 2,935 years after creation, the Temple of Solomon was dedicated. Okay, then we go to the 6th week. And the 6th week here, it says, after that, in the 6th week, all who live in it will be blinded. So I'm assuming that's in the nation of Israel, the temple, there's some sort of apostasy that happens. And their hearts will godlessly forsake wisdom. In it, a man, has to be Jesus, will ascend, because no person has ever been born and lived a perfect life and ascended into heaven, except for Enoch and Elijah, I suppose. But at this point, the dates don't match. So there's this guy, this man, that will ascend. At its close, the house of dominion will be burnt with fire, and the whole of the race of the chosen root, and of course that's the plant of righteousness, which is Israel, will be dispersed. So that is pretty interesting. So at that point, plugging those in, this is during the 6th week, day 1 through 7. In day 5, we have between 3,900 and 3,999, Jesus' ascension. On their calendar, that would have been 3957, which would have been on our calendar 32 AD. The temple was burned 3995, which was 70 AD. And then the dispersion of Israel happened with the Bar Kokhba rebellion, 132 to 135. which is around 4057. So it's in that date. So all that stuff happens. Okay. So now we get to week 7, and this is where the confusing part is, and I have no idea really what this is. But this is what it says. Remember, it could be because we're missing part of the information or something else. One thing, I'll stop real quick on this. In the Testament of Noah that we found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Noah makes a comment that during the year he was cooped up in the ark. I mean, there's not much to do but sit there and wait, you know. When there was light, he got the books out, or the scrolls, and tried to learn about his week. And I thought that was interesting. That obviously goes back to this and the prophecies. But as we've read, there's really not much about Noah. There's a little bit, but there's not much there that you could read or study. So that makes me wonder if we're not missing part of the prophecy. This is the Ethiopic version. We really want to find a full Aramaic or a full Hebrew version. Because when we put the scrolls together, as far as the calendar goes, and I'll show you here in the book of Enoch, we have the astronomical calendar section, which is chapters 72 to 82. But there was one place that seemed misleading, just the way it was written. It was kind of slightly garbled. In the Dead Sea Scroll version, though, it was perfectly clear, and that helped us figure out how the calendar actually worked. We were stuck on the leap week stuff. How does that work? And so that actually helped us. So if that's the case, this might be missing something also. But so far, we're 100%. Let's see. So that happens. So then we get to the 7th week. Okay. So that would be between 4200 and 4900, or actually in the AD time frame, that's between 275 and 975. Okay. So somewhere basically between 300 to 1000, something happens back then. And this is what it says. After that, in the 7th week, an apostate generation will arise. The rebellion will manifest in many different ways. Now remember, this has to be between 275 AD and 975 AD. So the only thing I'm thinking of is in this time period, the Gnostics actually rose up and are pretty much gone by 275. So that's almost like, well, it's over 300 years of Simon Magus. Remember, he's mentioned in Acts. So that would put him somewhere in the neighborhood of in the 30s AD. So 250 years later, you know, it's like, so, but there's a lot of stuff that comes from the Gnostic teachings in the medieval church and other things. Now the Kabbalah comes out, that would definitely fit as being very strange, very corrupt. But the Kabbalah doesn't come out, as far as I know, until the 1200s. So we're not talking about Kabbalah. We could theoretically be talking about Islam rising up, but it takes many different ways. So it's really interesting. So in my note here, I've got anti-Messiah and cultic type teachings that might be found in the Talmud, Gematria, Kabbalah, corruption of the medieval church. That was my guess, but I have nothing to base that on. But something happens between 275 and 975, which isn't got this in it. So we have an apostate generation arises, and obviously things get messed up, taking many forms. So we could say Islam, we could see all the break-offs or different shoots of the church that got really weird, any Gnosticism that was still around, maybe proto Kabbalah type stuff that's around, or who knows what else. But it says
It's about to get real interesting in a second.
Okay, so at the close, that would be the final day. So
because he's about to go into our week.
975. So somewhere in
The
that
8th
century,
week, the end of the 7th week, beginning of the 8th week.
Now, righteous would be believers, but when it says elect righteous, I'm assuming Jewish believers because of the elect plant. The elect righteous of the eternal plant, oh, there you go, it's definitely Jewish believers, of righteousness will be rewarded with a sevenfold instruction concerning all of his creation. Now, it's been speculated that, Jews today make more discoveries in science and understand more and we're able to get more done than most of us.
He's actually talking
And
about
if
the
that's
New
true,
Testament.
That could possibly explain it if you're going to say sevenfold is a way
But
of
see,
saying
he don't know
everything.
that. He's not really
Seven
taking a
is
good look
complete,
at
so
it.
it's the complete
Sevenfold
instruction,
instruction
everything
passed on
that
by
the
Jesus
superstar
Christ before his death.
But when it says
He is talking
a
about the
sevenfold
introduction
instruction,
of the New
it seems
Testament.
like it's a specific teaching or a specific something. This was between 875 and 975 AD, if this is correct. So it's not computers, it's not internet, it's not understanding of viruses, it's not modern medicine, that kind of stuff. We were told that the Essenes had great medicine. Not medicine, but herbal medicine, I guess I should say. So unless it was forgotten and revived, I don't think that's it, but it could be something like that. So it's interesting to see what happens. It could be that texts that were held back are finally pulled together like a new Essene movement that pulls all the scrolls together and has a full copy of everything. And finally, when you have everything in your library, then you can read it and finally understand everything. Something like that. And so this is the thing that Josh Peck was saying. He has a clue of what this might actually be. So we'll have him on next week if we can get him on and see what we say about that. But this is the confusing part. The rest of it's pretty good. It continues by saying, who is there in all of the children of men who is able to hear the voice of the Holy One with trembling?
I talk to God every day.
Probably believers.
He talks to me back.
Who can think his thoughts? Well, we have the mind of Christ, so we'll see what's going on here. Who is there that can behold all the works of heaven? That would be none of us. Who could behold the heaven and understand the things of heaven, see his soul and spirit and relate to it, or ascend and see their ends and think and do like them? Who is the man who
All that's very easy.
know that his breath, what is the breadth and the length of the earth, and to whom has been shown the measure of them all? This kind of sounds like Job. I mean, what human being can do?
All that information is already written in the books. All you have to do is read the books and you will know all of the things he just mentioned.
What it is founded upon, or could the number of stars and know all the luminaries?
The amount of stars that exist is the same amount of blood cells in our body, which is the same amount of people that is upon the earth. Something about 8 billion.
Try to put it in order. So this is the 8th week.
We are all one. Remember that. Everything is one in the universe. Everything is the same in the universe. That's one thing you need to understand.
And forward in that day of the 8th, oh no, that's something else. Never mind. Sometime in the 7th week, we've got the sevenfold wisdom given. And we just don't know what that is. So now we're in the 8th week, which is here. And the 8th week says, after that there will be another, the 8th week, that of righteousness, and a sword will be given to it, and so it will pass righteous judgment upon oppressors. So the bulk of the entire church, or the bulk of the entire world, was governed by a corrupt medieval church, and we have the Protestant Reformation,
The Pope,
the break off of the Eastern Orthodox churches, things like that. That could be what we're talking about. Sinners will be delivered into the hands of the righteous during its completion. Now remember, its completion would be that last day, so somewhere between 1575 and 1675, or maybe even slightly before, but at its completion. During the completion, they will acquire houses through their righteousness, and a house will be built for honor for the great King forever. So it does kind of sound like, if you think of Martin Luther in 1517 nailing the 95 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg Church, and then him being tried in 1521 at the Diet of Worms, the Council of Worms, Worms, Germany. And then from that, as time goes out, the Protestant Reformation begins, and you get Lutherans and Calvinists and eventually Baptists and everybody. And things kind of balance out. So that could be what we're talking about.
So
here.
I was looking at the weeks
Ninth week,
and the dates
says,
that he
after that,
has.
in the ninth week, the righteous judgment will be revealed to the whole
It didn't
world.
appear to me as though his
The
dates seemed
reestablishment
correct.
of the nation of Israel, probably. So that happens between 56 and 63, which is between 1675 and 2375. I know that's a big gap.
But I
It's a
really paid
700
attention
year
to this
period.
part right here.
So in that time period, Israel is reborn. We know that to be 1948. And all the works of the godless will vanish from the earth during this time. If this is 2375, that would be, if you're believing like I am, definitely way into the millennial reign. So the tribulation has already happened, the rapture, resurrection, things like that. The world will be written down for destruction. That would be that great tribulation. And all men will look toward the path of integrity. And so that would definitely be the development of that. So back here in week 9, is that week 9? What were we looking at? Yeah, 9th week. Okay. So here's the 9th week. And here's our century. Our century in this calculation is day 4, which is between 1975 and 2000.
That's the year I was born.
Basically, that 100-year time period. So in that
Right
time
there.
period,
That's
we
the year
think
that I was
we will
born.
have
1975.
the rapture, the tribulation period, the second coming, the start of the millennial reign. And that makes sense because somewhere in there. And then we have week 10.
I just feel as though his weeks are off.
After this, in the 10th week, in the 7th
This part, his dates.
So that's right here. Okay.
I'm not sure if these dates are matching up with the actual times.
It's going to tell us between 6900 and 6900.
That's where I don't believe that he's
So that'd
correct.
be 29.
Because the events of week 8
up to 29. That
have not all been satisfied. They have not all been satisfied. Okay? If the events of week 8 have not been satisfied, therefore his dates and time might not be correct.
Eternal heavens will appear in the midst of the angels. The first heaven will depart and pass away. That sounds just like Revelation. And a new heaven will appear. And all the powers of the heavens will give sevenfold light forever. So here's that sevenfold again. I don't know if the sevenfold light has anything to do with sevenfold instruction. And then we have eternity. So if we go back to this, again, if we have the great white throne judgment here, the last day of the 10th week before eternity starts, 1,000 years before this, if we go back, 2975 is when that
2075
so we should go back to 1,000
is
years.
1,000 years before the end of the world.
1975.
1,000 years left
That
from
century.
this year here. From
So,
100 years from my birth,
1975
we have
and
1,000
1,000
years left.
should be the rapture,
So
the tribulation period, the second coming, start of the millennial reign.
right up in here,
The temple, that kind of stuff.
in this 100-year gap right here, we are going to receive a new king.
But right now,
In this 100-year gap between 1975 and
May
2075.
1st, 2021. So we're getting a lot closer to 74 than 75. We're definitely getting there. So it's in here somewhere. So I wanted to share that with you. This has been the Apocalypse of Week, and it's the 10-week prophecy. Prophecy of the 10 weeks. So again, what he's doing is breaking this up, and this will be online here eventually, probably this next week, because I'm trying to get everything organized. But he breaks time up into 10 weeks, with each day being 100 years, a century, and accurately predicted Enoch's birth, the flood, the Noahide laws, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob starting the nation of Israel, the Mosaic law being given, Solomon's temple being dedicated, Jesus' ascension, the burning of the temple in 70 AD, Israel being dispersed, and then some sort of sevenfold wisdom given in the Middle Ages.
So pay attention.
Protestant Reformation, and then our century, and then the Great White Throne Judgment. So not a whole lot in this, and again, I'm wondering if there might be extra stuff.
This should be about the time
on this.
that our Lord will return.
And we'll get to him.
He will be here soon.
The first 500 years.
We are already
And
at
you'll see the same thing.
2022.
The Shemitahs, and
That
then
means we
the
have
days, and
50,
again another 50-year period, and another 50-year period.
3 years.
So again, we got 50, 100, 150 from creation, and then BC here going
Pay attention.
forward. So we'll try to put in
The last 1,000 years.
Seth is born at 1:30 a.m.
The last 1,000 years of the earth
1:30 is the second year.
will be
the fifth Shemitah,
basically
the second
only for the
Jubilee.
righteous.
That's the way the Book of Jubilees would write all
I have
the
a
dates.
feeling
And so we're
it's
just trying to
possible
pull all these together
from the
so we have
scripture
Jubilee calendar,
that the Messiah, the
an
last
AD
one to
calendar,
come,
and an AD-BC calendar.
might not even
and if
die.
they all mesh together, we almost have
He
to
might
do
not even die.
3 separate calendars, you know.
Now I'm
And
going
so
to
that's what
upload
we're
this
trying to
video
do, go through each one of these.
and I'm going to
We wanna
continue
focus on the 8th one,
with another
the
video.
prophesy, and that's got a lot of stuff that happens with the Maccabees and with the Essenes. And then the 12th one is the things of our age. As you can see, I don't have much in here, but World War II, Israel coming back, and some of the different prophecies. So we'll go ahead and stop there for tonight. I will go and look in our chat room and see if we have anything else.
We're going to do
So
a
like
part
I
2 of
said,
this.
next week, we'll probably